I'm Erin DeCock and this is Carol Nelson, and we are part of BACK.TALK Women's Collective, a student collective aimed at working towards creating safe spaces for creative feminist activism within Rhodes and the broader community. We just wanted to say a big thank you to Aqui Thami for coming all the way from India for this workshop that we had yesterday. Carol and I were both inspired by Aqui's work, her pink poster project, where we were first introduced to her, where she stuck these small stickers and posters saying a woman was harassed all around Bombay, which really captivated us and made us want to find out more. So we just wanted to ask how you came into art, what sort of creativities you were surrounded with, what your artwork is about.
Okay. I'll answer it one by one. I came into art because I'm a student of social sciences and feminist studies, and there was so much work to be done, and it got harder and harder with language because India is so multilingual, and India literally millions of people. And art just became this way of communicating with people easily, and I also really enjoyed doing what I was doing once I started really making work and not just writing papers and making interventions. And I always have this energy when I am surrounded by hate and violence, and I don't know where to take it and what to do with it. And for the longest time I suffered so much because I had all of these pent up anger, and art became this way of healing for me, because once I started to process what is happening to me because of the actions of people around me, and I started to process it and put it down and express it, it started to heal me and make me feel whole again, and it was a really exciting time. So once I made that discovery, I wanted to share it with more women and more children and more people who are historically oppressed, and that is how. And I think that answers what my work is about also pretty much.
In relation to that, what prompted you to make the pink posters, and how did people interact with this work initially?
Okay, so when I did the pink posters project, it was a very hard time for me because though I come from India, India has this super nuanced social structure and a system of social hierarchy. So there is the caste system, which has the Brahmins on the top, and then the Dalits at the bottom, and the Dalit women at the real bottom of the bottom of it. But there's also indigenous communities, and I come from an indigenous community in India, and so India is a huge country, and we have the mainland, and we have the south, and then we have the northeast, and we have the north. So it's all these parts, and people often indigenous people are often in the northeastern region and the Chota Nagpur region, which is towards the east again. So I come from the northeast, and we look slightly different than people in the mainland, and we face a lot of racial tension, and we are not it's hard for us to find housing. It's because we are marginalized. systemically, so it's hard for us to get admissions in universities. And around this time, when I started with the pink posters, I was having a really difficult time in my apartment, and I was facing like a lot of violence, and so I had to put it out. And then I started with a bunch first, and then I really wanted to go and reclaim all the spaces where I faced harassment in Bombay, and it kept growing because my friends and the other women that saw these posters, they were so inspired and filled with energy and rage, and they just were like, I want to go and do this. So I started sharing the posters with them as well. But a lot of times the posters were taken off the walls like immediately. They were not at all tolerated, but it is exciting for me to see how people react. Like, they find that time to like come and rip off like a poster because it's disturbing them to that extent, that a woman is like reclaiming that space and saying that I was harassed here. And then I first started with English, and then I did a few posters in Hindi and in Marathi, and now I have a few posters in Urdu. And because the posters were being taken off like instantly, I started to make stickers, and like the stickers were like super popular as well. Everyone that I know wants stickers because every woman that I know is harassed. It's such a shame. We laugh about it, but then we have to like really watch every step that we take, and men will never know this. It's such a shame that every single woman, no matter where I go, like literally, like everywhere, every country I go to, women see this sticker and then they're like, can I have one please? Like, because they have faced harassment, and it's just a shame. Yeah. Did I answer your question even?
Yeah, no, you definitely did.
So I think a lot of the work you're doing, even with the stickers, it like contributes to a larger a sisterhood. And I think that's a lot of what you're doing in your sister library project. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
What sister library or the sisterhood?
Sister library and the sisterhood, that you're creating there.
Yeah, so we also run like neighborhood reading rooms and info shops, and but these are all independently run projects because we don't get like sponsorship from a corporate or like a foundation, because we don't want them to like tell us what to do and how to do things. And the collection that we have are like subversive and things that you don't really see outside, and things that would make one imagine and ask questions. So these are like always temporary spaces because we don't make a lot of money. Like, we are a collective of independent artists, and this is Bombay Underground. And I'm a part of this collective called Bombay Underground. I'm one half of it, and it's a collective which is we're interested in like creating dialogues around many things. Like, we just want dialogues around community and the power of community. And so like one of the things that we do as Bombay Underground is create these reading spaces. And while I would be spending time in these reading spaces, I would see that people don't really take women's work seriously, and it just was like so sad for me, because then I would be like, why don't you read this? Because people would be like, oh, can you suggest me something, or like, I want to look at a zine from this country, and do you have it? And I would show them a zine done by a woman, and then they would be like, oh, but this is a woman's work. And I would be like, yeah. And then they would be like, but I don't want to get into like, women. And I'm always like, okay, we are always a subcategory to things. And it was so hurtful. And then I started to look at what am I consuming in terms of reading, and this was like 4 years back, and it came as quite a shock to me too that my reading list was also mostly men and white men. And I had to like check myself, and since then I started reading women exclusively, and also started looking at women's works in academia and women's works in the underground. And then I had so much of books and zines that I collected over 4 years, and I was like, damn, I want to make a library now, because I want to share this with everyone, because it just gave me this whole new perspective of life and things just by reading women. And I did not feel alone in my in the way I feel and express emotions, and it was just amazing. And then I got this award which is given to emerging artists in India, and I'm using that money to take this library, a collection of 100 books and zines, to different cities in India. And that's it. And it's been so good, because the people that come to Sister Library, because it's a traveling library, so it goes to a city only for 10 days, and people really look forward to like having Sister Library in their city. Like I've had like emails from cities that are not like even in my plan, and these people are not necessarily feminists or like even academics or even artists, but just the thought of like being surrounded by works of women exclusively is an experience that they want. And it's been so nice, because once they come and then they look at the books and the scenes and they're like, wow, I never thought of it like this, and then they start talking to each other, and like we talk about a lot of things that we are not allowed to talk about, even in like safer academic spaces. And it's been great.
In another interview on Sister Library that we found online, you spoke about how historically women have been denied validity in terms of writing non-fiction.
Mm-hmm.
How does zines and poster culture counter this narrative for you?
Zines have been historically about like personal writing, and it has always questioned this binary of like what is fiction and what is non-fiction. And that is why I'm like super excited by like zine making and posters, because there's really no surveillance of what you are producing, because you don't have an editor who is going to be like, this does not feel right and cut this part out. So zine makers can do anything. We've got that power. So it's pretty great that like we have zines that women are making, and they question so many things, and they are fictional zines, but then also they are like talking about so many things that even the most radical libraries may not have, like, you know, a lot about like what happens. Like recently I got a zine from Zurich on like women in squats, and like I was just blown away. I was like, what? I never heard of this. Like, you know, things that happen to women living in squats, because we imagine that squats are like nicer spaces because they're all pretty alternative to the mainstream, and amazing things.
Apart from your PhD and these projects that you're running as well, you're also a practicing artist. So how long have you been working in the artistic field, and did you go to art school? What are your like opinions on art schools and galleries?
You're going to put me in trouble. Okay. I feel like sometimes art schools are nice because they give you time to enhance skills that you can use to make the world better. What I have a problem with now is that artists are living like any other ordinary people, and they have become producers of things and not necessarily artists, and that is something that I have a problem with, because the world is full of artists now, and everybody like just like open any social media and then you'll see like artist, but Like really, what does it mean to be an artist in today's time when we see so much of like violence around us? There's wars happening in countries, and there's still people dying of hunger, and there's like rape is an event that happens every single day. And what does it mean to be an artist in a world like this? And yeah, I meet a lot of artists in India because suddenly now the world has started taking interest in like artists from India, but that is something that makes me feel a little uncomfortable with artists and art spaces, because it tends to be super exclusionary, and if the space is exclusionary, then you can imagine that the works will be exclusionary as well. And I don't know what that is going to do to the kids who aspire to be artists. And like, you know, you're creating an image of an artist that one would want to be, and I don't know if that image is the right image, because for me, I wanted to be an artist because I wanted to be free, you know, because I felt like I was trapped. I was asked to, like, we live in a capitalist world, so I was asked to yield, like, you know, like make something, not make something, like work towards something so that you get paid. And I just wanted to get like free of that cycle and just do things that make me fully human, and that is why I became an artist. But I think I go to a lot of art schools because sometimes I have to like go and teach like feminist intervention and art, but it's really hard to come across people who don't really want to get into the gallery system and just want to make art. Like, you know, everyone wants to go on residencies, everyone wants to go to galleries, and I'm just like, wow, you're becoming just another worker, like, you know, just a part of the big old machine. It's no fun.
You speak about, like, you know, well, a lot of your work is to do with community and, you know, having spaces for children to make art, and one of them is the Dharavi Art Room. And this space is not just for girls to learn ways of thinking creatively and critically, but also helps young boys understand their positionality in the world. Do you think this contributes to a process of unlearning toxic masculinity?
Yeah, like that is one thing that we do with young kids, like boys, because like boys don't have really anything nice to look at, like, because they are either shown that they have to be like this super macho, like being able to like hit and punch people and be protective of their women and treat women in a certain way to be told they are men. And especially in spaces like Dharavi, because it is so dense, because it is so full of migrant population, because the children are so unsafe, they develop toxic masculinity so fast. Like, you'll see a 10-year-old child who just like was out there to beat people because they want to prove themselves, because there is no other protector in the house. And it's really hard, because you can imagine a child being like, you know, like a really tough guy, and like he will, like, the way they speak, it's just like really alarming when they first come. And art room just becomes this safe space where they can like let their guard down and they can just be kids again and not have to like constantly wear that burden of being the protective man or just the alpha male, and so that nobody beats them or nobody harasses them or molests them or their sisters, because that is the kind of reality they live with every day. And yeah, working towards sisterhood and working towards liberation, it's one thing to work with women exclusively, but also working with men and working with young boys, especially. Like, it's really hard to work with men, but like with young boys who are still kids, and giving them this opportunity to understand that there can be a better world and men do not always have to be hyper masculine, is so important, because then they start looking at women differently and not just as objects that need protection or objects that can be used for pleasure, or just objects that can be exchanged. They like just creating the space has allowed the boys that I work with to see women in their lives differently. As we do a lot of projects. I'll just give you an example of a project that we did. It's called Aesthetically Yours, and we asked the boys to go and interview their mothers and their grandmothers, and it was like a video art project, and then they went and then they would interview, and they made all the questions, and when the project got over, they were all like, oh my god, my grandma is so special, like she used to play with these toys, and then she came like to Dharavi like this was the story of our migration. And these were things that they would never think about, because they would think of their grandmothers as just someone that is there to clean the house, or their mothers as someone who's there to get monies by working in another person's house, like to clean their house and come back, and a person who is like scared of the father in the house who gets beaten. And these are the images or examples of women that they see. But then when you let them like really understand women as human beings, they just start respecting the women in their lives. And it was so nice to see that shift happening, because mostly these young kids go to schools, and because they start speaking in Hindi and sometimes in English, they feel like everyone else in the family is not good enough, and and when they start to understand the stories of like migration of their family, how they lived for so long in such hard environment, they just start like really respecting their family and women. And then they're like, no, women are not weak, they're amazing. And yeah, that was like an amazing time that we had with kids. But also because they start understanding women in their families differently, they start understanding women around them differently. Then then they're like, okay, if my grandma is like that, like for a 9-year-old boy, just imagine, like if he's given that opportunity to start understanding a woman in his family as a full human being who is extremely strong and who is fun and exciting, then he starts looking at other women also as like, maybe this person is exciting as well, and maybe I want to play with this girl, and not just like, I'm going to beat you if you don't go inside the house. Like, so the whole language changes, and it's fun.
I think a lot of the narratives around feminism, or why people are like hesitant to be a part of feminism or talk about feminism, is because it's associated or understood to be only about women. And I think that in your practice you're showing that it is not only about women, it's about the people who we live in the world with. So interested in knowing like how do you do feminism, or what does feminism mean to you?
Yeah, I work with men, but feminism to me still means about women. I work with kids and women towards liberation from patriarchy, which we are burdened by every single second. Men are affected by patriarchy as well, in my opinion, but their lives are not threatened by it. Like, they will become masculine, hyper masculine, they'll have toxic masculinity, they'll have fights amongst themselves, they'll have gang violence and all of that. But it affects women differently, in the sense that we have to watch every single step that we take. We have to make sure that our clothes are not too revealing, we are not walking so slow that someone jumps at us, we are not going home so late that we will be attacked. And like, we literally have to live like with that fear of being hunted like we are animals, and that is the worst. And I'm working towards, in small steps, maybe creating spaces where women feel nicer in their own bodies and in the world. Like, small, like when I work with mummies in Dharavi, it's just to create that safe space in the family. That does not mean that it will totally remove them from the family, and then they will not be raped in that house again, because that is the reality of their lives. Marital rape is the thing that most women there live with. So just by coming to the art room and making work does not mean that all of these problems will be solved in their lives, because these are problems that are created by patriarchy and by capitalism and by heteronormativity, and these problems will not go away until the system goes away. But what I can do is like give them that small space where they feel like, okay, I'm not all broken, and I'm still somebody, and I'm alive, and I can feel things, and I can be happy. So that is the small space that I'm trying to create, because these small spaces are like lights entering like a dark space, and it creates shifts in the family. And I've actually seen this happening, you know, women who come to the art room and make work or like do photography, they start to reclaim spaces, and it's really amazing to see them become like more and more powerful and more vocal, because usually they don't talk at all. Women are supposed to be seen and not heard. And yeah, you start seeing that shift, because my work is all about like talking about what you feel, and like because I do something like that, they are also like, okay, I feel this way and it's disturbing and it's not nice, but they're also talking to each other about how they feel. So yeah, freedom from patriarchy is important for men and women, but I work more, but like I don't care what happens to men really, because like really they can fight against patriarchy themselves, which we have not seen. Like, you know, all we see from men is like being attacked for doing what we do. Like I get attacked so much for like it's not cool. And these are men, like they feel so entitled to like my attention and time and my work that they just like like if women have come together because they understand that okay, there's a problem situation, there's patriarchy, and we need to like really break the system. What have men done? Like I don't understand. It's so yeah, men need freedom and women need freedom and liberation from this, but I'm working more towards the liberation of women. And maybe by working with these kids, like the younger children, they start looking at the world differently, and they start understanding that they need freedom as well. But what is more important? Like, is freedom more important or is power more important to you? And that is a choice that everybody has to make, including these young kids, because you may start to look at the world differently inside of the art room, but when you go outside in the real world, when you're faced with real problems, you again have to pick up that shield and again have to become masculine and hyper masculine, because then if you are not that way, then you cannot fill the can of water for the day, like, you know. So they have like water queues where like people stand and fill water. Yeah, if you're not like that, and if you don't tell people I'm going to kill you right now, you won't get water. So what is it that it's really difficult. I'll just shut up, I've been talking for too long.
Yeah, I'm interested to know, or how would you describe your last week here in South Africa, particularly the events that are unfolded on campus this week? Do you think the poster making workshop was successful in regards to this?
Yeah, South Africa has been very strange, because this is the first country I have arrived in where I have not gone exploring by myself, like because everyone keeps telling me it's going to be unsafe. And the first day we went out, I actually saw that and I was like, I have never seen people jumping at other people like that. And Erin and Carol were with me, and we come out of this bar and after dinner, and Erin was so scared. She was like, can you please drop me to my car, and I don't want to walk alone. And I was like, why? And these two men come, and then they're like so aggressive, and then they're like, and I could not understand what they wanted, because they were not really like, you know, touching us or anything, but then they were there, like just their presence and their aggressiveness was just too much. And I was like, what is going on? I don't understand. And then they explained to me that these are car guards and then it can get hard. And I was so surprised and also a little bit scared, because I was like, wow, this never happens. Like, okay, India is a super violent country and it's so unsafe for women, but like we don't have car guards. And also there's public transport, so not everywhere, but in Bombay where I live, like you can just take buses and trains, and yeah, you might get harassed once in a while, but there's no constant fear. And I also heard from a few kids here that there's a lot of gang violence and people are attacked for no reason. And so yeah, I haven't gone out exploring because I don't want to be attacked. But yeah, the other thing is that it's just been so sad since the day I got here. I don't even have the motivation to like really go out and explore places, and it's beautiful outside, but I really don't have the strength to like walk around alone and like, you know, look at nature or go hiking, because someone was killed, right? Like it was not suicide, it was like murder, because she cried for help. She said what happened to her and nobody believed in her. And this is what I mean when I say sisterhood, you know, which isn't there. Like, it's a shame that today everyone is a feminist. Every single person says I'm a feminist, but where is the action? Like, I don't see the work. Like when someone is crying for help, nobody is there for her, and we are losing so many women every day. It is really, I have been so disturbed because I have not seen anything happening, like no activism, and this is a result of rape and it's a result of hate crime, and like just posting on Twitter and on Facebook is not going to change anything, you know. Movements have to be fought on ground, like, and there is a culture of fear that is just so thick here, because every time I tell people why is nothing happening, everyone's like 2016, and I'm like, no, that is in the past. Like, fights just, like, it's been just hard. Like, it's really hard because I come from a history of survival, and it's just not nice to see that nobody even is respectful that someone is dead and gone forever. And she was active from what I have heard, and she was trying to contribute and participate in change making. And yeah, it's been a hard couple of days, but definitely I felt like the poster making workshop, because it created that space where like you could use again that pent up energy and anger and whatever emotions of like hurt or feeling raw inside. You could really like process it and put it outside. And I saw so many women feel great, like when they were putting up posters, wheat pasting, they were all like, oh my god, thank you so much for doing this, I feel so powerful right now. And that is what we want, right? Like, art is supposed to make you feel like that. And yeah, I feel like it was a success. And we've bombed your campus.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few just like silly questions, which it's similar to the TV show Inside the Actors Studio. Yeah, so if you're entertained. Okay, there's 10. Okay, so what is your favorite word?
Vulva.
Vulva.
Because it has love in it, like vulva. Yeah.
What is your least favorite word?
I don't know. Just let me think. Moist. Yeah. Sounds like really disgusting, no? Moist.
What turns you on creatively and spiritually or emotionally?
I'm always turned on. I think I have to like really, like I look so zen and calm, I've been told all the time, but like I'm always ready to do things, so I'm like always super turned on.
What turns you off?
When people are not nice to each other, I feel like they don't respect that other human, and it's just like a big turn off.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck, I think.
So quiet. What sound or noise do you love the most?
The printer, the copier. I love that sound.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, and it's the mating season for the cats. It's so loud.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Nothing. I'm happy being an artist.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh my god, so many. Everything else.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in that kind of thing.
Okay, so we're going to open up questions to the floor if you guys have any questions for Aqui.
I think I have a couple. So you're a PhD student as well, right? The response of the university here to rape culture and that sort of thing, how do you compare it to universities back home?
It's really interesting because I'm seeing a lot of like student-led movements everywhere, and even in India it has been on since 2013 after one of our friends in University of Hyderabad committed suicide in his dorm room because he belonged to the Dalit category and his scholarships were stopped from the university, and so he has become, he was the reason the movement started in India, and it's just like it got crazy. But there is talk around divide amongst like Dalit students and caste Hindu students, but there's still nothing around sexual violence. But also India has like a lot of culture of shame around sex, and I don't really think women or men who have undergone sexual violence are ready to like come out and like speak about it. But also because our universities are not so big, it's just like really small spaces, I don't really see it happening. But I know a few people, women, who faced sexual violence, but they don't really want to come out and start a movement about it because maybe it will find place in the students' movement sometime. But right now it has all been about allowing people from marginalized communities to come to the university. It's really hard, like you can see it as black and white, like lighter skinned caste Hindu people or lighter skinned Muslim people, which means that they were from Aryan descent, are the ones who go to universities. People who already have families and parents who speak in English are the ones who go to universities, and everyone else is like first generation learner or coming from backgrounds where they don't have any property, like no farmlands. Their parents are like workers in somebody else's fields. So it's a great divide in India. And also looking at that context, you have to understand that studying has always been something that Brahmins are supposed to do, and the people from lower caste categories are not supposed to study, because study is supposed to be the vocation of the pure. But because now we have like a rise of impure blood in the campus, says in different universities. That's where the revolution started, and a lot happening, but not so much around like rape culture, and like everything in India is rape culture. You should watch a Bollywood film. Really.
So you spoke about how active change has to happen on the ground level, and I know you're not from here, but often an outsider's perspective can give greater perspective than people who are here and have that fear of 2016. From what you've seen, how would you suggest students on this campus should go around creating that change on the ground level?
See, I can't really speak for you, but because I felt all of these things like really closely the past few days, and I'm like really, I've eaten off their ears, like, because like, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this, because I met so many people and I kept asking them, what are the rape laws like? And you know, if people think activism is all about going to the ground and shouting, it is not that. You have to do your homework, you have to know what exactly you're fighting. And nobody knew what happens, like how are rapists convicted, what is the law behind it, and do you want to change it, what does the university's response have to be, do you have like a guideline for how to, you know, act when there's a rapist in the campus, like what is the demand that women want to make. Like the first thing I would think of is that once someone makes a complaint of being harassed by a certain man, I'm saying man because men are the ones who harass women generally, but there are like few instances where women do as well, so I'm just going to stick with man. Yeah, like if there is an incidence of harassment, then the first thing the university should do is like to keep this harasser out of the campus until proven innocent, you know. It should not be that okay, the harasser will be in the campus and the person who is harassed will be in the campus, and she will have to witness him every single time, you know, until it's proven that she was harassed. That is not right. So there are a few things that you guys can do. Like we thought that maybe have like a study group and try to understand what is actually happening, what are the legal regulations, and then working towards like demands from the university, like what is it that the university has to do, how the university should react to an incidents like this. And maybe you can go and work with like women's rights organizations or legal help bodies to develop the idea further and work towards a national regulation on rape and sexual violence. This is something that happened in India as well. There was an upper caste girl going to a university who was raped. I guess you guys know of Nirbhaya, no? No. So like one of the many rapes that happened in India was of a girl who was coming out of a movie theater with a boyfriend, and she was kidnapped and on a bus, and she was raped and repeatedly on a moving bus, and then her body was thrown on the street. There was metal rods inserted in her vagina, and she was left to die. And so her body was collected and then taken to the hospital, but then the doctors in India could not attend to it medically, so she was taken to Singapore where she died. So this is one of the many rapes that happen in India, but because she came from an upper caste background and from an urban space, so people started feeling like it could happen to me if it could happen to her, like because it's not a maid or a maid servant. That is the term people use for people who work in people's houses, or their children, or someone poor that this is happening to. This is someone that lives in Delhi, goes to a medical school, is upper caste, is going out with a boyfriend, that is what was done to her, and people were like shocked, and they wanted, like, you can see pictures of it, like there was like a huge crowd that went and flocked to the roads everywhere in all the cities, and they demanded that the rape laws are changed, the definition of rape in the legal sense is changed, because so far it was just like penetration, like of penis and vagina as rape, and then that was changed. And yeah, so the accused were arrested immediately, then they were tried, and then they were acquitted. And yeah, that is what happened. But still, like, at least there was a change in how rape is perceived by law, and that can be done by you guys also. You have all the resources here in the university. You might have like a department of law or something. You can totally make a study group and like try to ask questions as to how would you like to be protected by the state. And I'm not saying that this is the answer. Like, laws don't always keep things from happening, but it is a start, you know, somewhere, something, at least at the university level.
Last week we had a national march, protest, the national shutdown for women. It was a women-only march. My question around like that sort of thing, what then becomes the place of men in fighting rape culture, patriarchy, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I have this very, very good proposal for men who always ask me this question, is that in India and in other developing countries, we have this thing called self-help groups. I don't know if you've heard of it, and if there's a version of that in South Africa, but then it's like groups that the government go to different spaces and create for women, where they are given loans and then they work towards something, and then collectively, and then they pay back that loan, right? So this model is in use everywhere, like the Grameen Bank also uses it. What I suggest men in the world should do is that they should create self-help groups where they help each other get rid of their privilege and their hate against women, and try to understand why is it that we do what we do, because men don't listen to women. It's just like obvious, like men won't listen to women. Us telling them that this is what's happening to us and this is what's going on for so long has not changed things at all. So it's about time that men check other men in their lives and themselves, like, you know, all the men, like gay men and straight men and black men and brown men, all the men should like check themselves, because being brown does not absolve you of being patriarchal and sexist. So it's the same with being gay, like, you know, you might be gay but you will still be sexist. So start checking each other, form these groups of brotherhood just like we have groups of sisterhood. Don't come and tell us what to do, and try to listen to women. Like, always understand that men have power over women in all situations, so try to like minimize that power and try to like create spaces where women can speak to you and speak over you, because women are always scared to speak over men. That never happens. Just check that power.
Have you faced any backlash because of your work, and how did you deal with it?
Backlash as in?
Negative reactions?
Yeah, of course, all the time,
Yeah.
like all the time. I have been chased by pimps. Like, pimps are, I think you guys know what pimps are. So like Bombay has a really big red light district, and you'll see prostitution happening everywhere around railway stations if you go around like 7 o'clock. And because usually I go out with my posters later at night, and my posters were so disturbing to the pimps, and they thought that this will affect their work. They literally like chased me like 3 blocks. I had to run for my life. and it's really scary because I'm a Gurkha by ethnicity, so a lot of women that are trafficked and forced into prostitution come from the place that I come from. So these pimps speak my language, and I was just like, oh my god, I have to run. But yeah, the cops stop me. People sometimes are like, what is this? Oh my god, this is so disgusting. Can you please take it down while I'm putting it up? So there's a lot of people who are against this kind of work, but also they're not ready. They're not ready because they've not seen anything like this. And they have to see it because this is real. It is not something that I have imagined. And even if it's something that I have imagined only, it is fine to share. Like, people from only a certain class are allowed to imagine and share things, which has to change, and that is why posters and zines, but yeah, a lot of backlash all the time. The last time I was in India and I was putting up posters, the cops asked me to stop. Yeah. Or they take it literally, and then they're like, who is that harasser? Can you tell me who that harasser is? And I'm just like, everyone.
Oh, okay, that was another question. How do you keep the conversation going with people who've been moved by your work? Do you use any digital platforms?
Yeah, I've been I don't so much do digital, but then because everyone keeps asking me, do you have a website? So I have a Tumblr blog, which is never updated. But I have an Instagram where I usually share what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But other than that, really nothing. And also these things are expensive, the website and maintaining it, and I really don't have the energy to do that. But yeah, I'm quite active on Instagram, I'd like to believe.
That's how we even got her here, because we saw her on Instagram. Yeah.
Sent her 5 messages in a row.
Yeah.
You mentioned gay men and patriarchy being sexist, right? I think during the past week, a lot of the conversation I felt was very heteronormative, right? Around sexual violence being perpetrated against women only. How can we further discussion to be inclusive of male survivors who are gay or otherwise?
You'll have to ask that question to a gay male survivor and not to me, because I'm limited by being a woman, and I can only speak on women's experiences and women's pain, because these are the things that I have first-hand experienced and have experienced in the community, and I've seen the effects of it and seen lives being lost to it. So I can only answer you or share with you these experiences, but yeah, I cannot speak over gay men. You'll have to ask them that question.
I don't know if this might be a bit too personal, but how has your family reacted to your stance?
My family does not know what I do. Like I said, I'm a first generation city living, university going person. I'm the first person from my tribe to be getting a doctoral degree. So my parents don't really understand what I do, but they know that I'm active. And the place that I'm coming from is extremely violent, in the sense that there is militarization, there is rape by the armed forces, and it's a really difficult place, their environment. But my parents don't want me to come there because they know that I'll cause trouble. So they're like, please don't come back home, just stay in the city. And yeah, they know that I'm doing something active because both of my parents are activists also on ground. But they don't know exactly what is it that I do, and I think they might be uncomfortable if they know. But I don't even know, because my mom used to go around wheat pasting when she was very pregnant during armed violence, so I don't know how they will react. But they also don't know what I do.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question. There's one.
And as an artist and activist, how do you go about, choosing your visuals, the fonts, what you basically do in your posters, right? In terms of how do you strategize certain kind of visual elements, which graphic elements, which languages you use? Just like a few thoughts and maybe also recommendations for the South African student.
Yeah, I try to make it as simple as possible. Like, if I want words, then just words, and if I want an image, then just an image. And I try to make multiples, so like there's the same thing in different languages to create more impact, because my work is all about taking it outside. And then especially in India, you cannot think that okay, everyone speaks this language, because they don't. So yeah, keeping it simple and keeping it because I said this yesterday so many times, I hate repeating it, but then this is important. You cannot have smaller texts because it's not in a gallery space. People will not have time to come close to your poster and look at what is written, no matter how exciting it is. And you also don't want to create that, or you want to create that, I don't know. It's up to you if you want to create that disruption. But mostly what happens when that happens, like when you stick something with like really tiny words that cannot be read from afar, is that people are not interested. You have to put something out that really arrests people's mind and attention. Yeah, when they are walking past, that it makes them stop for that second, look at what's written, and then play with that thought, or like make them angry and come and rip off your work. But it should not be like something that is like not there at all. Or sometimes like get excited and come and interact with me, because sometimes especially after the Me Too hashtag thing, a lot of my pink posters had hashtag Me Too, Me Too, Me Too, so many women. And I was like, this is great. Like that kind of interaction can also happen. Sometimes people come and pee on it. That is also an interaction. But what I do is I keep it as simple as possible, and I try to use colors. So something bright, something that's visible from afar. And font wise, when I'm making the posters digitally, I can play with fonts and like print and see, but now I mostly like that, because I'm so tired of everything being done digitally, so I just like to paint and write myself and just play with how the words are placed and kind of create something which is not like in a box, like, so it does not have to be in a straight line, all the letters don't have to be the same size. And I'm very excited by that, like the power of handwritten, and these days I just play with that.
Thank you so much for letting us interview you and coming to host or facilitate.
And talking our ears off.
Yeah, facilitate the workshop. Cool.
Thank you for having me. It's been so great.